For gold season 1, and it is round 2 here at the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. We have 5 drivers in the session, followed by X1, Tuki, then Duo with Attila and Dot right out there. It's going to be 18 minutes of qualifying, then of course 26 laps of racing after. But before we get going, we need to be out there. Remember, F1 25 2026 season it is, as we just await and have a little bit of a wait before we see drivers coming out on track. As we're just having a look at that. So just before we get started, let's have a look at the championship standings right out there. As it is from the previous round's result of the previous round, so this is what it stands. X1 leads ahead of Dot, with Baker in P3, who did not score points. It was the 2 drivers who scored points in the first round, and it was X1 who won it and scored 25 points with Dot, who then got 3rd place. So that is interesting in that championship. We don't have the results, so I'm not quite sure what is going on here. But King has got the 3rd place points rather than 2nd place points, which would have been 18th. Which would have been 18 points. Of course, it was round 1 in Austria. Now we are right here at Silverstone. Before we move over to Belgium and then Zandvoort, followed by Baku for the first half of the season. Let's not waste any time. Let's get back out on track. Please bear in mind, I've got no OBS feed this time, live basically. I will have OBS. But I'll have to pause the game every time. Even though earlier it used to pause, but it was beside me, at least on my laptop. For some reason now, it has decided to get stuck on one side of the screen, so I cannot move it around, unfortunately. So if there is anything that you need to tell me, you can tell me up on Discord as if there is anything wrong. Hopefully there won't be anything wrong at all, but still, in case there is. Meanwhile, drivers are now out on track right there, with about 3 minutes already passed in the session, and that is 2K in the Red Bull right there, moving around, weaving left and right in the Red Bull 2026 car to get themselves a nice little warm-up of tires. And then it is Attila, they're in 4th place, of course, without a time. They're in the Williams out there. Meanwhile, Dot in P5 right there as it stands, obviously in that RB, moving around left and right, just into cops they go. So the first driver who's going to be closer to the finish line, or rather to start their flying lap, that's rather going to be Taylor. They're going to be on their way to begin their flying lap, be the first driver here at Silverstone to start a flying lap. How fast will that be, or how good will that be? We're going to have to find out throughout the whole lap, as they move their way up over towards turn 1 in 7th gear, using a bit of battery, overtake mode on, rather just trying to use the boost, or simply using it on default as it usually would be. Meanwhile, they're going to just now get over to another straight mod on and up to the main straight. Rather, they go. It's going to be another first sector end, 27.275. How fast or how good of a lap will this be? We're going to have to find out. Over the whole lap they go, but that is still a little bit to go for them to go around, as they're just going to make their way up towards old start finish line into its cobs before they make their way and to make its end. Beckett's they go, and then into the field. That's going to be a chance for a dance and a half for them to set up a time that's rather competitive at the end of these first 2 sectors. 104.476. Will it be comfortable? Will it be enough, or let's say just good enough for them to be in 1st place? right out there. We're going to have to find out. Meanwhile, the Red Bull driver is not far behind them at all. And how good has Attila went over there in the Williams, the very first driver of the line, 129.430. Will they be the fastest driver out there? We're about to find out as you get the Red Bull of 2K to come over the line and put the time on the board. Will Attila be the fastest, at least for now? Yes, as that's a huge mistake from 2K in the Red Bull. They just lost their car, and that's going to be problematic. While over the line goes John Dot in, and that's gonna be a fastest lap of the session so far, and beautiful for them so far. At least a pole position at the moment in five car racing, of course, but so far there's their fastest 128.722. I think 2K and the Red Bull would have been quite competitive as well, but just as they were making their way in towards the final corner, they hit the sausage curb and completely lost the car, and that put their time to be 130.493. So definitely all sorts of things that we're going to have to watch out for throughout this qualifying, as X1 is currently still in the pit lane so far. Oh, sorry, and apologies about that. We just went a little bit silent there. I was actually trying to get the map of the Silverstone circuit, as Tuki is going to be our driver to begin their first lap to head towards the Hamilton straight into Abbey and then the farm curve, as they now currently see themselves towards the farm curve, I believe, from the farm curve into Village. But I'm not... yeah, that's going to be the one then. That's the main straight. And up towards the Wellington straight they go before they move their way to the end of the first sector into Brooklands. But how fast will they be? Anywhere near the previous first time sector? A tenth down. So even though their first lap did not count into the final corner or competitive enough, it was enough for them to possibly set up too fast first and second sector. Meanwhile, we're going to watch out for Duo to come over the line and complete their flying lap, as they're just going to make their way in towards the club chicane, as we're going to watch out for them to now come around the final corner and onto the Hamilton straight they go, and that'll be fourth fastest, and that's rather slowest of anybody so far, and slowest than Tuki. Meanwhile, 2K have made their just about a few thousandth of a second better than their previous lap time. Do we see them go over the line? And yes, we will see them go over the line, as they just made their way up towards Club Chicane and on towards the Hamilton straight now. And now they tried it and they've lost it again. Not once but twice. Not once, but twice they've lost their car, and they've lost it on their own. That is the thing, ladies and gentlemen. They've lost it on their own. Meanwhile, we move over to X1 right there, but that's rather not enjoyment for 2K there. They've lost the car on their own, unfortunately. They were roaming around in qualifying, and they've rather lost the car earlier, or maybe they didn't touch the curb in the first one. I'm not sure, but it felt like they've touched it. But this time into the final corner for the second time they went just before the Hamilton straight. They just possibly a bit too much on the throttle, way more than they should have, or they would have wanted to, and they certainly lost the car, and that sees them to not have a competitive lap time even so far, even though they're in P3. But definitely they'd be anywhere, I'm trying to find a word for it, but they would definitely, yeah, sorry about that, apologies. They would definitely be in the top 3 without a doubt, but let's see, we can't say much until we see them put up a competitive lap time. Now they obviously don't have fuel, or rather, yes, they don't have, unless they try and go again. I don't think so, because it's already red light flashing, so I'd expect them to rather be in the pit lane and go change tires if they want and get some fuel as well. And we're going to see on X1, the man who won race 1 in Austria. Can they keep it again? Will they be able to do the job that we expect them to do? As onto the Wellington straight they go, as that is a time for now for them to beat 28-1. We've seen faster times, we've seen competitive times than from other drivers than X1 did there in the first sector. Of course, we're only going to count what they do overall in the first lap, but how can they do it though, as they are now onto the old pit straight into its Copse they go. We're gonna have to for them to find it out. Yep, into Copse, and then now into Meggett's and Beckett's right there. But are they actually? Yes, they are just about now around Meggett's, and then Beckett's they go into Chapelle Curve, followed by the Hanger Straight, as at the end of it they're going to move over into the Stall Corner. That is going to be making them follow. That's going to have them followed it into the Welsh Chicane and Club right out there. But before and after all of that, they've got the final corner to go. Onto the Hamilton straight they move, and up to the front row that is. So they just about beat Attila, but still not enough. Or into the 127-28, as King is right there. So far, King in the RB could really be the king of the night, but we're going to have to find out, can they do all of that right out there? Well, X1, definitely they're going to do more and more laps, but how fast or how good? We'll definitely get an idea with Attila on their way to get better, maybe get near X1 as well. X1 can try and get better King, or even 2K in that Red Bull, try and get better and quick out there. It's all going to be happening, and it's all certainly going to be a chance, or at least some sort of a thing to watch out for. And they rather are on the flying lap now. How fast are they? And they're fast enough, and faster than X1, at least in the first sector there. 20 in the 127s. Meanwhile, X1 was in the 128s, as they're going to make their way up towards on the exit of Laffield and into Woodcote, followed by Copse, followed by the famous Copse corner, as that is nice and easy, flat out, nearly go wide, almost for all 4 wheels off the track, but they just keep it within the track limits to have their lap competitive, as we're going to watch them out now to go towards Meggett's and Beckett's, and they're so slow into Meggett's and Beckett's there, watching these 2026 cars, as they found a 10th and a half, at least 1.6 tenths into Store Corner they go. But how fast is this one? Will this one be into the Welsh Chicane, followed by the chicane is not well. I believe it's the Club chicane, maybe. I'm not quite sure. Into Well, and then followed by Club, and that follows by the Hamilton straight, and that is enough for them to move over up to the front row once again, and into second place and into the 128s. 2 of the 5 drivers in the 128s right now, with X1 currently still in 129s. If they can improve, 2K can put a proper lap, then it's going to be Duo who's going to be the only one outside the 128 and being lots of pressure, as they're going to find about 1.7 tenths, almost 1.8 tenths currently so far in their middle sector, but that's now on them, as they just have 11% of their battery remaining, so they've definitely overdone it, and that could show up as an overall lap. But maybe what they couldn't achieve in the first 2 sectors, they could try and do in the final third. They rather cannot, as they're now not only they're not closer to the car in front, they're rather slow than where they should be, or what we would expect them to be at. So there it is then, as Taylor is currently out on the track, but rather on a cool-down lap so far. So still a little bit before we see them come over the line, while Dot is now out on the track as well, with X1 on an out lap as well, followed by 2K, who finds themselves currently in the pit lane. Alright, as we're going to see the Williams driver come into the pit lane right there. So they've simply made it to the pit lane, as they're going to continue to come into the pits rather. Would have, they found a lap. I think they've done a decent job. Now it's just simply on them to stay, rather go in, change tires, get some fuel, and with only 2.5 minutes remaining, it's pretty much going to be the final 2 to 3, or maybe final 2 or the final single lap they do, depending on how good they wish to do the lap or how fast they can rather go. As we're going to now switch over to rather King, and they're going to watch them out, who have started their flying lap, and they're rather going to be on this one right here. Are they going to continue and go over the line on this lap, or treat this one as a cool down or other preparation lap to get their tires ready and be there for the final lap with only a couple of seconds remaining? So 64 hundredths of a second quicker than their previous time in the first sector. But how quick will that be, as through Lafille they go into Woodcote now, over the old pit straight, followed by the Cops corner. It's all important, these corners they do in this middle sector. They downshift up towards 7th, and only 30% remaining on the battery. Into towards Megaton Beckett's they go, and look at that, how much they're having to lift right there. Into 5th they go. They nearly lose the car, just about correct it very quickly. But how quick was that? Was it quick enough for them to keep their lap time right out there? 0% battery remaining now. Our current pole sitter, will they be able to keep their pole position? With this one would rather be their final lap around here, so they would definitely want to improve with the rapid speed of Attila right behind. And that's going to be Dot over the line, and they find not only an improvement, but a massive improvement over the line. 128.215, an excellent lap right there with Attila, who's currently making their way up towards the Beckett's corner, but can they make it over the line in remaining time to be the faster or better driver? That's going to be quite risky. Meanwhile, X1 is now going to be beginning their flying lap, making it this one their final attempt, and leaving no time at the end of the session and taking the checkered flag straight away. Meanwhile, we're going to watch out Attila to try and go for it with only 10 seconds remaining. This is going to be a greatest of calculations for them to go over the line. 3, 2, 1, and with just 2 seconds remaining, they've managed to go over the line, and 54% battery. Look at how much battery they've used just trying to get over to the start finish line and go over the line before the checkered flag falls and get themselves a lap time on the board. So let's see how good of a time are we going to see to this to be, as X1 is now on towards their way into its Cops as well. We're going to see them, if they're improving on their time or not. They need nearly a whole second, at least 9/10s, to get anywhere near Dot right there up the top. They can surely get past Attila, but only if they are improving right here, and they certainly are by over 5/10s. That might not be enough to get past Paul Sitter, but there should be enough to get past the Williams. But our Williams driver is doing nothing but improving overall, and rather they're not 2/10 down on their time, and this could be interesting between X3, and they're going to come into the pit. They've invalidated an absolute Invalidated they have, and they might have just done it into the store corner as it stands, because definitely, I think so, because they definitely had the lap time to at least after the Meggetts and Beckett, so that's the only time out there. Meanwhile, Taylor just moves over. They didn't improve overall, maybe rather they did, 129.913, or even if they didn't, it doesn't matter at all, as that's going to be their second place and front row secured so far, with X1 in P3, followed by 2K and Dog Duo in 5th place. And look at that. That is your race results from, rather qualifying results from the qualifying session, ladies and gentlemen. Getting on pole, followed by Attila in P2. Then comes X1 in P3. Then it is 2K and Duo. And that is your top 5, rather the 5 drivers we have right now. And I wonder if there's going to be a bit of a break before the start of the Grand Prix, or we go straight in. Right, so it's a 3-minute break for everybody to set up setups and for them to choose their right strategy as well. Pretty much strategy comes in the setup thing, so it's almost the same thing they want to choose, but they'd rather be happy to choose it rather than not choose it at all. So I believe we're going to get an indication on when to start. So whenever we are to get that, we're going to come back. And there we go, cars are out on track, and that is the formation lap. Rather, we didn't see lights for the formation lap beginning, not quite sure why was that. And I'm not sure if we waited for 3 minutes or not. We rather didn't. It was an early start, so that is interesting to see, and it'll be interesting to see what the stewards do, rather, of that. As all right, so yeah, basically spot on so far. We're going to get this ready up, and after everything is ready, we will have this lined up. So 29 or 26 laps rather. It'll be interesting to see whether it's a 2-stop or a single-stop race, but definitely I think it's a 1-stop race right there. And yeah, as we said, somebody might be getting a penalty. Of course, they started earlier. So 3 medium tire runners and 2 soft tires. Well, the top 2 start on the medium, while the other 2 on the soft, followed by Duo, who starts on the medium as well. Right then, at the end of this formation lap right here, with Dot in P1, followed by Attila in P3 with X1, sorry, Attila in P2 with X1 in P3. Then comes 2K in P4, there it is, Duo in P5. The top 5 drivers all ready to get started, and it's definitely rather a 1-stop race than a 2-stop race, and it's all ready for us to get started for the British Grand Prix here at Silverstone. It's going to be now time for the race start right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights here, the British Grand Prix. King on pole with Attila in P2. That's 5 red lights, and we go racing here at Silverstone. It's a decent start for Attila. It's a brilliant start for Attila, with X1 getting past the pole sitter as well. Dot over the line. Hasn't got a better start at all, as X1 trying to get past. Meanwhile, the Williams driver has taken the race lead, and they're going to run absolutely wide. That might allow X1 to get the lead there. And yes, X1 from P3 goes up to the race lead. Straight away they go, and that has been taken by them straight away. But definitely that's going to be switching left, right, and center. But that's what we can see, as that's a soft air race start, the soft air start that they might have gotten right here. Meanwhile, at the back there's going to be Duo trying to get past the Williams as well. So our Williams driver, despite starting in P2, has had a horrible start, even though others around might have been on the medium tire along with him. But into it's the Cops corner they go. They're side by side, but the Williams just now gets past the Haas, or do they though, because they're almost going to be still side by side, and the Haas driver has been let go right there from the Williams out about. So we see, and that is only lap 1, ladies and gentlemen, only lap 1. And once more, this is going to be X1 and Dot right there. That's going to be drivers fighting for the bottom positions, and one's fighting for the top positions right there. That is, of course, Attila in P4, despite starting in P2, has fallen quite a bit. Meanwhile, X1, who's gone past our race leader and the Williams driver in P2, they've taken the race lead. They've started on less fuel. That is interesting to see, but we're going to have to find out right here, right now. So far, that was going to be close. I think that's going to be interesting to see, of course, at the end of the race, but for us to see whether they're able to manage tires, or let's just save fuel or not, because that's a big risk they take, if they will be able to do or not. For them, of course, there is a long way to go, so maybe we shouldn't. We should keep things slow and steady right here, because there is a lot remaining in the race so far. Excuse me. Meanwhile, there's going to be Dot round the outside of the McLaren into Meggetts they go. Now time for Beckett's out there, as Ding now gets past and makes the overtake to get the lead, race lead back again, as King leads the British Grand Prix. Lost the lead on lap 1, takes the lead back on lap 2, but might be getting it snatched once more. And yes, it will be, as X1 gets past him, but only 20% remaining on the McLaren. They're going to be side by side into the club chicane. Who is the leader right there? It is the RB driver, and that is Dot, who leads the Grand Prix once again. So taking those leads, snatching, then taking again. It's all sorts of things. Meanwhile, the McLaren is going to go for it on the inside line once more. They're racing brilliantly, the top two, sending it one after the other, not caring about anything. Soft tire versus medium tire. More battery versus less battery right here in these cars. But once again, with the boost available for the McLaren, they're going to be on their way to get past the RB, and they will be able to get past the RB, as the overtake is now done. They're again going to be wheel-to-wheel into its Cops, as they would rather not want to be wheel-to-wheel into Cops, and rather they are not. So definitely they're going to be quite happy about that. But how happy will they be? Because King now lets X1 get past them then, pretty much. Just lets them get past, but we can see that battery, not much battery remaining at all, only 25% right there. So look at that, 50% to 25%. It isn't much that we can look at. There's going to be drivers, as X1's got nothing, rather King has got a lot, but still X1 in the McLaren stays ahead despite running out of battery, but just lifting off a little bit helps you gain it. There's the Red Bull and the Williams at the back. There's the RB and the McLaren in the front, and that is these drivers racing each other nice and easy, while the McLaren has to lose out to the RB. The Red Bull's going to lose out to the Williams, and the Williams driver still stays out in P3. Different set of tires, medium, soft, medium, soft, medium. So it's all on, but let's see how well and good all of them be so far. Right then, look at this once more. The McLaren driver is going to be on the verge of losing the race lead in their other half. And of course, it's almost like to Bahrain, back when in Bahrain we had the social race. Even though we only had 4 drivers, but there was a lot of position switchings, and look at that. That's rather on purpose once again. So it's more like, sure, there are moves, but they're not as realistic or they're not as authentic as they would be earlier. And now who's going to be the better driver, or rather the better car right now, with lots of battery and boost to use, while X1 tries to save it. King uses it all and keeps the lead to themselves so far, as the Williams driver on the medium tire now catching up to them, as one of them has went into the pits, and that is the Red Bull of Tuke. He's went into the pits, and would possibly, you would believe that they've simply went into the pits to get a new set of tires. Of course, those soft tires aren't going to be lasting much. This being a 2-stop race, and they went for a hard tire right there. Minimum 10 laps on the hard. I think you could do hard, or even do a bit of medium if you can stretch a little bit on the hard tire, and then do the final 10 to 12 laps on the medium tire. But of course, only if you can, because these strategies are going to play a decent part. And remember, it's only lap 5 out of 26, so a lot is remaining in the race. There is so much that is still yet to happen in the race, and we can definitely see that, because the soft tire now might be just dropping off on X1's car, because they've lost out to King right there. Even though King is going to try and do slow, maybe let him get past if they can. And there goes 0% on the McLaren driver's car. But of course, that soft tire is not going to be off, as 2K is off those soft tires. There was only 2 soft tire runners, and X1 is still on those soft tires. They've got no battery to use as well, so maybe they want to make a pit stop right here, get rid of the tires, go into the pits, and of course, when they lift off, the battery will be recharged as well. But it's the time of they go in right now. Yes, they do. So only about 6 laps, including this one at the end of this one, on those soft tires at most. So would be interesting to know, because if they can, if those medium tire runners can go till lap 10, which would be interesting to see, considering if the hard tire, soft tire can last 5 laps, maybe medium tire can last about 10 laps. But it's of course gonna matter and depend from driver to driver, and from everything how that plays out, considering whether they do a good job or do they don't do a good job, or basically the set of, how good of a job will they be doing, or how well of a job they certainly need to do to stay in the fight, to stay in the competition. They're on lap 6 out of 26 right now, so we're only on lap 6. Even at the end of this lap, we'll have a whole 20 laps remaining, and now no soft tire runners in this race anymore, with the medium tire runners on right now, and soft hard tire runners out there as well. I mean, it of course depends from track to track, but even though you've seen them do 5 or 6 laps on those soft tires, I'd expect the medium tire runners now to come into the pit lane at least before lap 10. Maybe sooner or later, but possibly before lap 10. So depending on when they feel their tires are gone, as Duo now gets a penalty as well. The 2 drivers, we've got a 3-second time penalty. X1, who was the first one to get it, and then Duo gets it second. I mean, now we're trying to see what these drivers are going to be thinking. Now, let's see. Yeah, of course, it's about what you can do and what you want to do. You know, the two's the hard tire runners now, and that is 2K in the Red Bull, and then McLaren in the McLaren. That is X1 so far. Of course, they're going to have the tire deficit, but will it be worth it though? Because those on the medium tires so far are at least looking to continue. But for how long can they continue though? Because even if they go to lap 10 on those medium tires, then maybe they can go for a one stop if they want to be quite cheeky, or maybe try something different from everybody else. Do over 15 laps on the medium tires. But I personally would say a pit stop lap 10 and then another pit stop lap maybe a little bit earlier, or when. But it's all interesting. I think possibly they can get over 10 laps on these mediums, but you just never know. I mean, it also a lot depends on the driver as well. Some drivers who are good at tire management can continue longer. Some who possibly have a lot of tire wear, or at least some, or depending on track to track, if you have graining too much, you're going to have to pit earlier as well, no matter what, or how much you try. So, yeah, it's all about from driver to driver, from car to car, and how it handles, how it feels for them to really try a one-stop or a two-stop, or strategies, all of this. While X1 now right behind Duo in P3. Duo has not pitted, and X1 has only 1.1 second separating the two drivers. The gap is so far. How long will that gap continue, or we will be able to keep that gap? That's going to be a story that time will tell. And already we just get over onto the straight right there, and into Brooklyn's they go. That'll be the McLaren of X1 ahead of the Haas duo, and that is a brilliant move from the McLaren driver to get past the Haas driver. But how accurate and good that move is going to be, as we're going to have to watch out for, because a comeback could certainly easily be on the way from the Haas driver. But will that be though? Because we're going to have to find out. We're going to have to watch out for everything right there. Left, right, and center throughout. And Dot gets a 3-second time penalty, speeding into the pit lane. And as I said, they will most likely not do over 10 laps on these medium tires, and they have not. Rather than 8 laps, at least our race leader King Dot Isaac Jones. But yeah, Dot so far. So that is your story of the evening so far, ladies and gentlemen, as Tuki now gets loses the position. I'm not quite sure why is the case so far, but rather they take the position than gaining it, because it's the pit lane dynamic that sometimes if somebody's in the pit lane, they're going to be ahead of you at one time or another. And now Dot, who has exited off the pit lane into P2, only 1.1 seconds to X1 out there. So the fight between these guys is going to be absolutely epic as well, with Tuki arriving right behind. Only for, even though the gap is over 4.8 seconds, I think they can easily catch up to these guys, especially if they both go side by side, lose a lot of time fighting each other, can benefit others, and the other will be Tuki, who will benefit quite a bit from that, if it is for them to continue, and be quite a bit of not wasted time, but rather simply wasted tire wear, wasted energy, of course, trying to just fight each other rather than doing their own race each. So I think rather their focus would more likely be to not fight each other than fight each other. But I think that they were doing that nicely now, weren't they? Even on the first attempt, where they were letting one another get past, take overtakes, so they rather know what they are doing if they are to fight each other. But X1 so far has lost out to King. Of course, King being on the better and newer medium tires is going to try and continue. And as I was saying, now they can continue. They can probably pit early if there's a safety car for a hard tire to go to the end, or simply just continue normally with a two-stop strategy and still end up being in a decent position. And Dot King, remember, as a 10-second time penalty from speeding in the pit lane that they might want to forget, or simply, I think, good thing for a pit lane penalty is, especially in a two-stop race, you can serve it later on. You know, you definitely have got a second stop, so you can easily serve it. But the problem about the track limit penalty is, even if it's over 10 seconds, you cannot serve it. Obviously, in the first place, it only gives you 3 seconds, so that's not servable. But even if it gets past, let's say 10, 12 seconds, it's still not servable. So you almost need to get a stop and go penalty, or let's say a penalty that can be served in the pit lane to really have it. So honestly, in terms of, you want to say who you would be right now, be the driver with the 10-second penalty that's servable, or the driver with the 3-second penalty that's non-servable, I think easier answer would right now be, at least for me personally, the 10-second one, because anyways you've got a second stop. Obviously, unless you're trying to go straight away on a one stop, then maybe not. But if it's a two-stop race, you're usually going to make a pit stop, the second one, then you can definitely have a chance of serving that penalty. All right, then, our only driver who is yet to pit in the pit lane is in the pits as well, and that is Taylor. They have actually done over 12 laps on these medium tires. They might as well end up doing a one-stop here. Of course, we'll only find out when they complete it, but if they've done over 12 laps on the medium tires, they might as well do about 15 laps on those medium tires. So it would be interesting to see if they're able to do it. You know, we'll get a nice idea, but definitely I think it's worth a try, and it's nicer to see. I mean, if every driver would have went for a one stop, it would have or a two stop rather would have been rather basic. So now we'll also get an idea of if that one stop is any better. Obviously depends on the speed and pace of each driver, but will be interesting. Alright, then, out and about right here in this race. There isn't much going on, unfortunately, so far for racing or any viewer engagement, but obviously we're going to keep it as engaged as we can, as we always are. And now look at that. Tuke and Attila are going to be on their way to have a little fight with 1.4 seconds the gap between the two. The Williams driver, being on brand new tires, is rapidly catching over to the Red Bull ahead, who's on their 8-lap old hard tires. That's going to make it 9 laps on those hards at the end of this lap. But have they got enough speed? Have they got enough pace to at least catch up to or be within the range of the Williams, or stay ahead of the Williams? We're going to have to find out. They're still ahead of the Williams, though, but the Williams driver might try and get past the Red Bull sooner rather than later. As soon as on the exit of Beckett's into the Chappelle curve, they'll have the opportunity to get past the Red Bull. And even before they get over to the straight mod area, they will get past the Red Bull. But will they though? Because they're still side by side. The Red Bull driver might come back at them into Stowe corner. And the Red Bull's going to send it on the inside line. But just about just hangs it around the outside. The Williams driver just does enough. Will the Red Bull go for it once more? And that is a quite dangerous dive bomb. But they rather make it successful. And the move is done. And I think well done to Attila as well in that Red Bull, just about giving enough space for 2K to make that move. Both of them racing brilliantly so far. And now look at that, time is on with these two once again, and X1 is right out there as well. Time is on so far for both of them to be out there, and we're going to watch out for to see whether they have a chance at it or not. We're gonna definitely have to watch out for this, and we rather are, as a Red Bull driver still ahead of the Williams. Meanwhile, the McLaren maybe would have thought he's going to catch up, but rather he is not so far. It'll be interesting to see how good is it, or how well will it be. And that's going to be time for the Williams to have a go at the Red Bull once again, and they're going to be side by side rather. Oh, that was just about going to be a chance for the Red Bull to defend, and they do excellent time to defend this one. Into the club chicane they go. They're going to be side by side. Red Bull Williams will have the inside line. They nearly make contact, and they might have just made contact there. The Red Bull driver just not giving him enough space at all. Still looking to continue and keep their place no matter what, and they rather do so far right there, as these two are going to waste a lot of time fighting each other. And I think if they do, that might mean quite difficulty ahead in the race for Attila if they are to go for a one stop, as of course as we predicted. They're still over 10 laps around the outside now. They're going to be side by side into the into Brooklands they go. The Red Bull driver still hanging around and refusing to give up at all, as now Attila gets a 3-second time penalty, but they might want to argue that they were pushed wide off track and that was the reason they got the penalty, so they might not want to accept it. But as they get past the Red Bull, and finally the move for them is done. But will they be in danger in moving forward? They rather be, as they've got about 44% of the battery remaining, with over 50% to the Red Bull. Of course, these batteries recharge quite quick and also finish quite quick, so you never know who has the boost or who has the better battery or better chance at it because of the battery. As a Williams driver now going to do everything to defend, winning the Red Bull, knowing the Red Bull, how aggressive they've been so far. They might as well go for a moving for coming up already. So far, they rather will not, and almost back out of it here then, keeping it nice and easy so far. At the moment they are, and they're doing a pretty decent job, as now on lap 16 out of 26. About 11 laps remaining now in the Grand Prix, including this one before the end of it, as X1 now into the pits for the second time in this race, and what should be their second and final pit stop in this Grand Prix, with King so far driving like a king, over 18 seconds ahead of the next car, and currently on 7-lap-old mediums. Should be looking to at least continue to go over another few laps, and now they'd rather will be going for another set of soft medium tires, hard tires right here. Of course, they haven't used 2 set of tires. You know, they haven't got 2 different set of tires used in dry conditions, so it's going to be about how they do and what do they do right there. And now with race just coming up to an end. Still a long way to go, though. There's way more than to an end, as X1 now gets a penalty as well. Every single driver in this race now, apart from Tuki, has a 3-second time penalty. So 4 out of the 5 drivers have got a 3-second or more in time penalties right there. Some because of track limits, and some because of those pit lane entry, speeding into the pit lane. And now the only man who's looking to do a one-stop right now has done 5 laps on their hard compound tire. So depending on how much more they need to do, well, 28 seconds to the car behind, and that's going to be the Red Bull on their own. Go absolutely wide. And on completely brand new tires, Tuki, even just on their own, have locked up, and they straight go towards the wall. Just about they save themselves from a heavy hit into the barrier, so I'd assume no damage to their car, but definitely damage to their time in the race, and that would be another obstacle. And now, if Attila is to pit, if he wants to go for the race win with a one-stop, they might not want to pit, but if they want to keep the second place, they can even pit right now and have a free pit stop with over 41 seconds gap to the car behind. Now look at this right here. I mean, only driver without a penalty right there. Let's not forget. Meanwhile, we're going to go over to X1, who's on their way to try and get past the Haas of Duo, who's on 9-lap-old mediums, versus X1 on 2-lap-old mediums, of course, which should see them go over the line on these medium tires. Of course, the Haas driver should be expected to pit sooner rather than later, but the McLaren driver on their final stop that they've already made, while the McLaren had gone past the Haas, but the Haas driver again overtakes the McLaren with a boost of that energy and boost of the battery. That is going to be nice. Move being done as Duo now gets another penalty. Meanwhile, King is into the pits as X1 goes around the outside, gets the overtake, and it is done. The overtake on the McLaren, on the Haas driver right there, with Attila in P1. Taking the lead from King, and Attila is your new Grand Prix leader here at the British Grand Prix, ladies and gentlemen. Meanwhile, P5 for Duo on their own, could try and get past the McLaren, but they're not close enough, and I think they're rather going to come into the pits right now. And as I said, you'd rather be King, who had a 10-second time penalty earlier, than Aldo's with a 3-second time penalty. So those around with a 3-second time penalty or more, with 9 seconds to Duo, and X1 with 6 seconds right there. And that is Jane Dodd King, who served his penalty. And they've interestingly opted for a set of soft tires, which is interesting, and I believe they went for a soft tire purposely, again with another pit stop. I'm not quite sure, because they went for a pit stop right here with about 7 laps remaining in the Grand Prix. That's an interesting attempt to see, with 16 seconds to the car in front, and remember, 13 seconds is all they need to catch up to. Obviously, those hard tires are going to be out of grip by the end of this race, but it's all about how much can King gain now, because they would pretty much need to gain right now, because otherwise it's not going to be a problem, but it's definitely going to be some sort of a thing they're going to miss out on, because obviously, let's just say that it'll be about what they want to do or what they can do, but 14 seconds, 15 seconds the gap now, but I'm sure, even though they've fitted for the soft tire surely, but by the time we go to the end of the lap, end of the race, let's say lap 25, lap 26, those soft tires are rather going to be over, or definitely those soft tires are going to be out of grip. So anything they need to get on now has to be now. So far, we are here on lap 20 out of 26 right there, with Attia leading ahead of King in P2, followed by Tuki in P3. Then comes X1 in P3, P4 with Duo in P5. So 5-driver race, more drivers at the end of this in the Drivers' Championship. Meanwhile, Attia on... or is it Attila? I'm sorry if I'm getting your name wrong. And yes, that's Attila, so sorry about that. If I was pronouncing your name wrong, I'm not sure if that's correct even now, but Attila is right there so far, keeping themselves alive in the race, but how alive will they be with a 3-second time penalty? And King only 12 seconds behind now. Of course, all depends if they can do the remaining time, if they can easily take the remaining time, how it will be. We're going to have to watch out for, but it's all about how much you want this to be, or how we'll see them remain in these conditions so far. Of course, lap 21 out of 26. Remember, right, Duo into the pits, but Attila, remember, the only driver who is on a Attila on of course a one-stop strategy, while everyone else is on a two-stop strategy so far. So that's going to be quite an impressive race finish if they are able to not only finish in first place, but then also win this race right here. Remember, King just needs to finish within 3 seconds of the Williams driver, of course, to get themselves the race win. But can they do it now? Because we're on lap 22 out of 26 now. Not much is remaining right in this race right here, followed by of course King, sorry, as I'm saying James because I've got a name earlier, King James, which obviously was a different person. But yeah, so we're gonna watch out this. That is X1, followed by Duo in P5. Then comes Attila in the race lead. They took the lead ever since King came into the pits to make a pit stop right there, and then it'll be time for them to overtake or perform the job they have been looking to perform, to give it all and make it the best of the rest. But can they make it? Only 4 laps remain. And one more lap, and that one more lap gets us closer to the end of the Scrum Prix. Lap 23 now out of 26. Only 3 laps remain at the end of this lap. So we need to get past this lap, and then only 3 laps will remain. So once again, this race, it is Attila who is in P1 with King in P2, followed by Tuki in the Red Bull in P3. Then comes X1, who won in Austria, currently find themselves in P4 with Duo in P5, followed by, remember, Tuki and King, both without a time penalty. But is that going to be enough? Is that going to make any effect for both of them? Because Tuki anyways in P3, but the car in front doesn't have a penalty. And then King 9.8 seconds to Attila. But remember, they need to finish just within 3 seconds, unless Attila has got a penalty. They got 3 seconds, but I think they can also argue their penalty on they were pushed wide, because remember, they were fighting with Tuki there to really give them room or just try and avoid collisions, and for that they had to run off the track to get that time penalty. So I would rather lean to it. Obviously, you're going to have to watch the onboards. It's going to be a proper analyzation before a verdict has been called, but definitely something certainly will need a call for it. And I think if that's called correctly, that's going to be a brilliant opportunity for all sorts of it. But of course, only if it is, also only if it's correct though, because we're seeing it here from the comms box, but we don't have all sorts of onboards that maybe the stewards will have when they get to checking, or when they get to the penalty applying area to drivers. It's sort of, it's sort of the availability of everything, and availability of proofs and all sorts of things out and about, which obviously we're going to have to find out very soon, with only now 3 laps on the way. Lap 25 is X1 slowing down. They rather are not. Maybe I would have thought they are, but of course they are not. And it's Attila. Sorry, I was pronouncing your name wrong from the start, but hopefully it's going to be fine now. So yeah, basically Attila, our race leader, has continued to lead ever since King pitted, and the only driver who's attempted to do a one-stop race here at Silverstone, while everybody else pitted pitted earlier, started on the soft tire, or pitted for the medium tires early enough. So definitely they had to choose a two-stop strategy, while it was Attila who decided to pull the plug on a risk worth taking, and that risk was a one-stop strategy. Remember, they still need to finish over 3 seconds ahead of the car behind of King, and they really have got 6 laps on those soft tires as well. So I would personally believe those soft tires are now feeling not way worse than they were at the start of the stint, but it of course only depends now whether it's worth it or not, or can they get near the Williams or not, because rather you're going to watch out on why or what we've got so far overall. But okay, it just decided to go silent. We might want to no, there we go. Yeah, so yeah, basically as Attila is almost about to lap around the Haas driver, but this is all important now. 6.5 seconds the gap between the two drivers, and now it is about King, who needs to gain over 3 seconds, or 3 to 4 seconds on his single lap to try and get anywhere near Attila, who is in the race lead and on their way to win the British Grand Prix. But they've got the 1-4 final lap to go as Duo gets out of the way to give way to the race leader, who has now lapped them out there. Meanwhile, King is only making their way in towards turn 1 now. So that is about it. I think unless a major mistake, unless a major problem happens for Attila, I don't think King is catching up to them anytime soon. While Tuki, being on their own in the race, have and taking P3, they've decided to take on the soft tire as well. Maybe attempt for a fastest lap, as X1, who won race 1, currently find themselves in P4. So that's a bit of a time they don't need to worry about at all. I mean, they're in a race of their own, so maybe there will be a bit of a, rather not, I would have said, position switching, but of course Duo has yes, Duo's got 9 seconds as well, so both of them on same amount of time penalties. There isn't going to be much that is going to affect the result at all. But this was now, it is now time. The Haas drivers behind the Williams, but it doesn't matter because what mattered was the RB staying over 3 seconds behind the Williams to take victory for Attila, while everybody else decided to go for a two-stop strategy. It was the man on screen, and Attila comes over the line to win the British Grand Prix. Gold Season 1 takes victory in race 2, while Duo has taken the checkered flag as well. James in P2 falls short of a victory here at Silverstone. Duo has taken the checkered flag as well. Now it is Tuki who is making their way around Cops in rather X1, who's had to do another lap. He was almost a lap down now, and almost got an end as we are just about right here. We're now on, of course, but let's see. I think still there is one more driver, rather two drivers who are yet to take the checkered flag right here, even though our leader has finished. Usually he does finish, but if both of them were to go over the line after the leader, they would have possibly ended. I think it would have been the case for X1 to end his race, but I'm not sure why it didn't happen, because maybe he didn't lap him before the final couple of corners, so it would have rather registered him still being there. And Tuki gets the fastest lap of this race and takes the checkered flag in third place with a podium and a trophy of, not a trophy, but simply a fastest lap. I'm not sure if there's any points for the fastest lap. It's different from league to league, as of course Formula 1 doesn't award points for the fastest lap anymore. Meanwhile, now we're just looking at X4, the single remaining driver who is yet to take the checkered flag, and we're going to watch out for the McLaren to go over the line now.